Hi, I'm going to take you through the answers for paper 6, mock set 3, paper 3, calculator allowed. This is on page 43 in your booklet. Okay, so the first question is asking us 3/5 of the people at a tennis club are women. The rest are men. So we're going to start with our whole and subtract 3/5. We can put that into our calculator using the fraction as your answer. Our next question is change 350 centimetres into. There are 100 centimetres in 1 metre, so to convert from centimetres to metres, we are going to divide by 100. We've got 350 centimetres, so we can do 350 divided by 100, and that will give us 3.5 metres. We've got a list of fractions. It asks us which one of these fractions is not equivalent to 1/3. So I'm just going to type these fractions into my calculator and press equals. So I've got 3/9, and that comes out as 1/3. 5/15, that is also 1/3. 7/21, 1/3, 9/30, 3/10, and just make sure 15/45, that is also 1/3. So the one that's not equivalent to 1/3 is going to be 9/30. Last question that we've got. One evening the temperature was -7 degrees. By midnight the temperature dropped by 5 degrees centigrade. What was the temperature at midnight? So we're going to start at -7 and we're going to subtract 5. So if we put that into our calculator, and we get -12 degrees. Just turn over. Okay, so we've got a timetable for trains from Lowestoft to Preston. Our first question says, how long should the 7:46 train take to go from Lowestoft to Buckshaw? So I'm just going to use my highlighter. I've got Lowestoft 7:46 to get to Buckshaw. That gets in at 8:06. So if I have a look from 7:46 up to 8 o'clock, that's 14 minutes. And then I've got another 6 minutes. If I add those two together, 14 plus 6, that tells me it's going to take me 20 minutes to get to Buckshaw. Aris wants to go from Horwich to Leyland by train. He gets to the station at Horwich at 8:30. What is the earliest time that he can get to Leyland? So I'm looking at Horwich and I'm looking at Leyland. So if he gets to the station at 8:30, that means I'm either looking at an 8:39 train, 8:50 or 9:01. Now if I get the 8:39 train, I can see that that one doesn't stop at Leyland. If I take the 8:50 train, that one does stop at Leyland and it gets in at 9:12. Mike wants to go from Blackpool to Preston by train. He needs to get to Preston by 9:25. What's the latest train that he can get from Blackrod? So I want to be in Preston by 9:25. Preston's the bottom one here. So any of these trains will get me in at 9:25. What's the latest train that I can get from Blackrod? What if I go 9:22? That train doesn't stop at Blackrod. If I take the 9:17 train, that one leaves Blackrod at 8:53. So let's take that train. All right, I've got 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. Change 319 pounds to kilograms. So I need to do, I've got 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. I've got 319 pounds. So I'm going to do 319 divided by 2.2. I can use my calculator for this one. 319 divided by 2.2, and that gives me 145 kilograms. Question number 7. Mary, Bianca and Steve are picking apples. Mary picks 264 apples. 1/6 of these apples are green. Bianca picks 150 apples. 28% of these apples are green. Steve picks 340 apples. 15% of these apples are green. Who picks the most green apples? You must show all your working. So let's have a look at Mary first of all. So she's picked 264 apples, and 1/6 are green. So I've got 6 equal parts, so I'm just going to do 264 divided by 6. I can use my calculator for this. 264 divided by 6, and that tells me that 44 of her apples were green. I've got Bianca. She picks 150 apples and 28% are green, so I need to find 28% of 150. So I'm going to use my decimal multiplier there. So 0.28 times 150 and that gives me 42 apples are green. And then my last one, I've got Steve. He picks 340 apples, 15% are green. So I've got Steve, 15% of 340. So again, I'm going to use a decimal multiplier. So to convert from percentage to decimal, I'm going to divide by 100. So I've got 0.15 multiplied by 340. Use my calculator again. And that gives me 51 apples are green. So the question says, who picks the most green apples? That's got to be Steve with 51. Okay, question number 8. Sharon asked each of her friends to name their favourite Olympic sport. The table below shows information about their answers. So it tells you the sport and it tells you the frequency. Draw an accurate pie chart for this information. So first of all, I want to work out the total frequency. So I'm just going to add all of those together. So I've got 13 plus 17 plus 8 plus 7, and that gives me 45. So now I'm going to use this to find out the portion of the pie chart that we've got and find out how many degrees for each portion. So I've got 13 divided by 45 multiplied by 360. So 13 over 45 times 360, and that tells me that athletics is 104 degrees. For cycling, 17 over 45 times 360. And that's 136 degrees. 8 divided by 45 and multiply that by 360. And that gives me 64 degrees. And then for gymnastics, I've got 7 divided by 45 multiplied by 360, and that's 56 degrees. So we're going to need to use our protractor for this one. Get ourselves a pencil. So let's do athletics first. 104 degrees. So I place my protractor, making sure that the centre is at the centre of the line, followed from the centre of the line to my 0, and then I'm going to read it around to 104 degrees. So that's just around here. And then I'm just going to draw from the centre out to my marker. And then I'm just going to label that one athletics. Let's do cycling next. So I'm just going to spin this around. So cycling was 136 degrees. So place the end on there. Go from the centre to my 0 and follow it round until I hit 136 degrees, which is just there. And then I'm going to draw that line to the centre, and I'm just going to label that section cycling. Swimming was 64 degrees, so I'm just going to place it on, follow down to the 0 and read round to 64, which is just there. And that one was swimming. And then I'll just check, my last one should be 56 degrees. And there we go. And don't forget just to label that one as well. Gymnastics. Okay, let's go on to question number 9. So we've got a nice function machine here. So find the output when the input is 6. So if my input is 6, I'm going to multiply it by 6. First of all, don't forget you can use your calculator for these if you need to. So I've got 6 times 6, which is 36. And then I'm going to add 7. So I've got 36 plus 7. And that gives me 43. Find the output when the input is -4. So start with -4 and I'm going to multiply that by 6 first of all. So I've got -4 times 6. And that's going to give me -24. And then I'm going to add 7 to that. And that gives me -17. Now this time it asks me to find the input when the output is 79, so I'm just going to reverse my function machine. So I'm going to subtract 7 and I'm going to divide by 6. So I'm going to start with 79 and I'm going to subtract 7 and that gives me 72, and then I'm going to do 72 divided by 6, which gives me 12. Okay, so 400 grams of raspberries and 300 grams of strawberries cost a total of £7.46. 500 grams of strawberries cost £4.10. Work out the total 200 grams of strawberries. Okay, so let's start off with the strawberries first of all. So I know that 500 grams of strawberries costs me £4.10. So I can use that to find 100 grams of strawberries. So if I divide that by 5, I can do £4.10 divided by 5 as well. I'm going to use my calculator for that. So £4.10 divided by 5, and that tells me that 100 grams of strawberries cost me 82 pence. So I could use that to calculate 200 grams of strawberries by timesing that by 2. And that's £1.64. So I know 200 grams of strawberries is £1.64. So I can use my knowledge of 100 grams of strawberries to work out the cost of 400 grams of raspberries. So if I know 100 grams of strawberries was 82p, then I can calculate 300 grams of strawberries. So I'm just multiplying this one by 3. So I've got 0.82 times 3, which gives me £2.46. Now, if I know that 400 grams of raspberries and 300 grams of strawberries cost a total of £7.46, I can do £7.46, subtract my 300 grams of strawberries, which was £2.46, and that will tell me how much my 400 grams of raspberries were. So I've got £7.46, subtract £2.46, and that tells me that my 400 grams of raspberries cost £5. But I need 200 grams of raspberries, so if 400 grams, these are my raspberries, if 400 grams of raspberries costs me £5 and I want 200 grams, if I just divide that by 2, and I can divide that one by 2, that tells me that 200 grams of raspberries cost me £2.50. So I want the total cost of 200 grams of raspberries and 200 grams of strawberries. So I'm going to do £2.50 plus £1.64. And that is £4.14. Okay, question number 11. There we go. So describe fully the transformation that maps triangle C onto triangle D. So I can see it's the same shape, it's just been moved somewhere else. So I'm looking at a translation. If I just pick the same point on both shapes, and I can see that I move across 4 and I go up 2. And so there's my vector 4, 2. Put a pair of brackets in each statement to make the statement true. So if I put my brackets around there, and we can just check it on our calculators. So I've got 2 times brackets 7 squared, subtract 2, close my brackets, equals 94. So that one's right. And then the next one, if I put my brackets around the 2 and the 6, and I can just check that, 16 divided by 2 plus 6, close my brackets and add 2, I get 4. Okay, let's go to question 13. So we've got a compound area here made up of a rectangle and a triangle. So first of all, I could find the area of my rectangle, and that's going to be 9 times 15. Use my calculator, and that gives me 135 centimetres squared. And then I've got my triangle, but I do have some missing lengths. So if I know that the whole is 15 and one part is 7, I can do 15 subtract 7 to give me 8. for the base here. And if I know the whole distance there is 22 and one part is 9, if I'm trying to find the height of my triangle here, I'm going to do 22 subtract 9, and that gives me 13, and that's the perpendicular height for my triangle. So area of a triangle, half times base times perpendicular height. Use my calculator for that. 1/2 multiplied by 8 multiplied by 13, and that gives me 52 centimetres squared. If I want to find the area of the whole shape, then I need to add them together. So 135 plus 52. And that's 187 centimetres squared. Okay, last question, question 14. On the grid, draw the graph of y equals 2x subtract 2 for values of x from -3 to 3. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a table of values, and I'm going to go from -3 all the way up to 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to substitute in the values of x into the given equation to find my y value. So if I've got 2x subtract 2, I'm going to do 2 multiplied by -3, and then I'm going to subtract 2 to give me -8. I'll do 2 multiplied by -2, and then subtract 2 to give me -6. 2 multiplied by -1, subtract 2 to give me -4. 2 multiplied by 0 and subtract 2 to give me -2. 2 multiplied by 1, subtract 2, and that gives me 0. 2 multiplied by 2, subtract 2 is 2. And then the final one, 2 multiplied by 3, subtract 2, and that gives me 4. So now I've got a full table of values, then all I need to do is plot them onto my graph. So let's just zoom out a little bit there for you. So x is -3, y equals -8. When x is -2, y equals -6, x is -1, -4, 0, -2, 1, 0, 2, 2, and 3, 4. And you should end up with a lovely straight line graph. So don't forget to use your ruler and just make sure that you connect all of those points. All right, thanks very much. Bye.